I'm Jesse Weber in for Chris Cuomo. A Thanksgiving Eve tragedy today. We're covering how two National Guardsmen were shot in the head by a lone assailant just blocks from the White House. The suspect is reportedly a 29-year-old Afghan national named Ramanullah Lakanwal, who entered the United States in 2021. Both National Guardsmen are currently in critical condition, and the FBI is reportedly investigating this as an act of terror. President Trump took to Truth Social, calling the shooter an animal, vowing that he will pay a very steep price. And Trump also doubled down on his National Guard deployment effort, ordering an additional 500 guardsmen to D.C. For further discussion on the why, the politics of this, I want to bring in lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. We're joined by Republican Randy Fine and Democrat Suhas Subramanyam. Thank you so much for coming on, both of you. Representative Fine, I'll start with you. So you had a tweet after the shooting. My prayers go out to the two National Guardsmen who were shot, their families, and all who were impacted by this senseless act of violence. You have been somebody who has supported the National Guard deployment. The statement from September, you said public safety is a choice, and I want to thank President Trump for choosing to make Washington great again. I have to ask you, as this is developing, you know what a talking point's going to be. There are those who are going to say it was the president's fault, that if the president hadn't ordered National Guard members to D.C., this wouldn't have happened, that he put them in the line of fire. When you get that question, when you get that comment, what will be your response?
I'm going to call them the idiots that they are. The National Guard was brought to Washington to make it safer. It's been overwhelmingly successful, and the people of Washington, including the Democrat mayor, say so. And let me say this. What happened today was not a tragedy. A tragedy is when someone crashes their car by accident. This was a terrorist attack by an illegal immigrant, a Muslim terrorist from Afghanistan, who walked out of a subway station, walked up to two National Guard soldiers, and shot them in the head. We should be angry, is how we should be feeling right now. And the only other emotion we should have is being brokenhearted for these two brave National Guardsmen and their families.
And Representative Subramanyam, the temperatures are hot right now. National Guard is part of the conversation. The flip side of it is there are going to be those who say they have been demonized by those on the left, right? These armed men and women coming into cities. You had Democrat Senator Alyssa Slotkin appeared on Sunday, said that the National Guardsmen, she was nervous, would begin shooting at American citizens. Is it that kind of talk, that kind of language, that kind of rhetoric, where, as I mentioned before the break, I kept getting the question, Jesse, be on the lookout, something like this is going to happen, something like this is going to happen. And yes, we don't know the full motive, we don't know the full circumstances here, but is that a problem? Is that something that might have fueled something like this?
Well, to the extent that National Guardsmen themselves have been demonized, I don't think that's right. I think, certainly I and many others have opposed the deployment and the way they deployed the National Guard, but the National Guardsmen themselves we fully support, and this is absolutely horrific what happened. And so, certainly this is not what we want to see, especially Thanksgiving week like this. And we don't know exactly the motives, so we don't know if it's terrorism for sure, but what we do know is that this is preventable, should be preventable, and we should make sure that this never happens again.
100%. And Representative Fine, I'm going to go back to this idea of now deploying 500 more National Guard members, putting aside the legal logistics of it. Yes, I'm the attorney, and I could talk about how recently a judge said that the president's deploying a National Guard in D.C. is illegal and it should be suspended. Put that to the side. From a political point of view, from a safety point of view, is it the right move to deploy this many members of the National Guard, considering what just happened? Or do you agree with Pete Hegseth when he said we will not be deterred and this is not, we shouldn't remove forces from our cities?
Absolutely, I support it. And I think we need to go a step further. It is unacceptable when someone who should not be in our country at all hurts an American. And so what we need to do is double down, triple down, quintuple down on the number of ICE agents rounding up and deporting every single one of these people who is in our country illegally. That's what people should be most angry about. This is someone who shouldn't have even been here, who is trying to execute American servicemen. People should be angry. We need a lot more law enforcement, not less.
And that's an interesting point. So, Representative Subramanyam, there's an issue here where if this is true, right? You have somebody who came in here was supposed to be welcomed as an Afghan refugee, overstayed visa, now allegedly targeted 2 members of our National Guard. How is this not going to be a talking point for President Trump, for his administration, for those on the right to say this is exactly what we're talking about when we talk about illegal immigration, when we talk about illegal migration and the dangers here? What would be your response to that?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I'll just say that it can be a talking point, but the reality is we have a broken immigration system. We've had for a while now. We've needed to solve this for many decades, and we haven't as a country. We've tried many times and failed. And so Congress needs to come together and do comprehensive immigration reform, not just this piecemeal thing and sending people at border. I mean, this was a visa overstay. I've said this so many times. A lot of the undocumented folks in our country are not people coming across the border. They're actually visa overstays. And so we need to have a better process there and do better enforcement there. But I don't think doubling and tripling down on the National Guard is the right solution either. I mean, DC law enforcement is underfunded. I mean, budgets earlier this year that Congress passed underfunded DC law enforcement. They're 800 officers short. We should be putting more officers on the ground who have experience with this and knowledge about how to do community policing rather than just National Guardsmen who don't have the same kind of experience in a situation like that.
That's an interesting point, Representative Fine. The argument would be they're untrained in federal law enforcement procedures. They're on the ground there. There's an uncertainty about what their position should be. Maybe they're, going back to the idea of are they being put in harm's way? Should it be an increase in funding in local law enforcement? I mean, when you look at something like this, is that a fair assessment that perhaps they don't belong on the ground there?
I think saying it would be okay if 2 DC cops got shot in the head by an illegal immigrant Muslim terrorist from Afghanistan, as opposed to 2 National Guards, is a pretty disgusting equivocation. My view is this: we need to be rounding up all of these people and sending them home. My colleague is correct. Half of illegal immigrants in this country did not swim across the Rio Grande. They came here legally, and then they refused to go home when they were supposed to. They are just as illegal as those who swam across the Rio Grande, and all of them need to be rounded up, and all of them need to be deported. And I hope what we take from this is a determination to do that, because when an American citizen is killed by someone who should not have even been in the country at all, it is a disgrace.
And there's a multiple stories
that pop up.
Please. Yeah.
I did not say that it was okay for cops to get shot either. That's absolutely false, and I'd never say that. I think what I was saying is that the cops are experienced in doing community policing and evidence-based law enforcement, and not National Guardsmen, who, frankly, many of them have said they didn't know what to do when they got there, right?
Yeah. I think the guy walked out of the station, held up his gun, and shot them in the head. I don't know that it would have mattered if they were DC police or not. I mean, this was
Representative Five.
Just on him.
Representative Five, just 1 second. Representative Subramanyam. Yeah.
I think this was a terrible act. We don't know if it's terrorism yet, but it's certainly awful. So we don't know the motives behind this. But I'll say generally, and because I live in the D.C. area, I'm 30 minutes outside in Northern Virginia, we have seen people who work there go in and out who say that this has been a real waste of taxpayer money and a waste of resources when we should be diverting those resources to policing because the D.C. police have been underfunded. That would have been a better approach this whole year.
Unfortunately, this is one of those situations that is going to be politicized. It is going to be a talking point, and it's going to be used in different ways. So I think it's really, really important to get to the bottom of what exactly happened here in the circumstances, and that's hopefully what we can do. But Congressman, thank you both for coming on. Again, wish it was under better circumstances. Wishing you all healthy and a happy Thanksgiving to you and your families. Thank you both.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.